The Colts made a couple of very interesting draft picks tonight, but they're clearly trying to support their young quarterback. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, which helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. What is up, sports fans? Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks here from horseshoehuddle.com. We are recapping day 2 of the 2024 NFL draft for you from an Indianapolis Colts perspective. Of course, on Thursday, they got the party started with Laiatu Latu, which drew plenty of opinions. And then more to go around today on Friday. So both of the picks they made came via trade. They were on the clock at 46. They traded back with the Carolina Panthers. They gave the Panthers 46, and in return, the Colts got 52, and then a couple of fifth-round picks, 142 and 155. So with the 52nd pick, the Colts got a wide receiver who I saw taken in the top 35 or 40 everywhere, and that was A.D. Mitchell from Texas. So in a very deep wide receiver class, one of the more explosive players with some of the best potential was available to the Colts just outside the top 50. So I think that was a huge get, especially, getting a player like that it wouldn't have been in the end of the world if you got him at 15, but you get him a whole round later and you get 2 fifth-round picks as an extra bonus. And then in the third round, they actually traded up for this next one. They traded up from 82 to 79 with the Arizona Cardinals. They gave up a 6th-round pick, number 191. So they didn't really have to do much just to move up a few picks. They got Pitt offensive lineman Matt Goncalves as a result there. So just a couple players, but it felt very eventful, Zach. They get an explosive playmaker for Anthony Richardson, a guy who they hope to develop and become an all-around just terrific receiver. And then a lineman who you may not see much of, but it seems like they feel he has 4, perhaps 5 position flexibility on the offensive line.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the most fascinating one here is obviously A.D. Mitchell, the 11th wide receiver off the board in this class. And look, when someone with his athletic ability falls that far in the draft, you obviously have to look at other concerns and the reason why he fell that far. Now, Chris Ballard was very adamant in his post-draft presser here tonight about some of the things thrown around about A.D. Mitchell's character and the anonymous source game that always happens this time of year. And I do want to clarify, I do want to, chime in a little bit on this. I do think it was very valuable that Chris Ballard spoke out like that, because when it comes to A.D. Mitchell, from everything I had heard, at least, I mean, I was so curious about this player. I'd reached out to multiple people that I know that work in the league. It was never that he was a bad person. Like, I really want to make this clear, because when you see character concerns thrown out, he's not a bad guy. Like, nothing about his character concerns are like criminal or like bad guy whatsoever. It mostly revolves around him being a young, maybe at times immature, 20-year-old player at the college level who was dealing with type 1 diabetes and maybe didn't manage that correctly. Again, this is not me talking directly to Mitchell. This is talking to people who just relayed information to me. Maybe not correctly managing that, and it leading to some inconsistencies in his overall work ethic with the team down there. That's what I'd heard. That's the character concerns. So before we throw out character concerns about a player, again, I do want to reiterate that it's not like criminal or bad. It's just, again, like a younger kid that has things that teams are aware of. And obviously that was enough to push him down the board to pick 52 for the Indianapolis Colts, where they felt comfortable taking that shot on this player. Now, when we're talking about A.D. Mitchell, it is such a fascinating draft pick because there are so many reasons to see this as this home run swing at a guy who can be a top 5 receiver in football one day. Like, I legitimately think when you see the flashes that this player has, you are seeing CeeDee Lamb. You are seeing, top tier wide receiver ability on film. But will he reach that full potential at the next level? It really comes down to him and the system he's going to be in. So I see both sides of the argument. Like, this is a really, really risky pick for the Colts here in round 2, but it's a risky pick you make because the potential for the payoff can be so, so great. Like, this can be your bona fide wide receiver 1, your superstar player if all things work out. But so far in his career, it really hasn't worked out. We're talking about a guy who has one of the worst production profiles we've seen in recent drafts. I mean, like, he just never eclipsed 1,000 yards, was never the leading receiver on a college team at 2 major programs, had very little yards after the catch, and a lot of that had to do with his own timing issues, his own struggles with, pacing throughout his route and getting to his desired landmarks. But when you see the flashes, again, like, I don't want to just adhere to what the flashes are and say that's exactly who he's going to be. But when you see the flashes, you can see why a team would take him this high. I mean, he's a 6'2", 210 pound, 205 pound wide receiver who ran a 4.34, who jumped 40 inches, who had a 136-inch broad jump, which is like near 100th percentile. On film, you see this guy who wins on double moves, who can win over the middle of the field when the timing is correct, who is a dominant red zone player, who has great body control. You see the T. Higgins in his game. You see, again, the CeeDee Lamb type flashes in his game. It's all about getting his right headspace and getting him to fully buy in. I'm not even going to say that there's effort issues, because every receiver kind of has effort issues. What I'm really saying is, if you can polish this kid up, and you can get him to grow not only in his habits, but also in just his overall play on the field, and just become more well-rounded as a player, the potential is there for him to be a star. Like, this is legit star potential. We're talking purely based off of talent that is in this player's body. He is a top 10 to 15 talent in this class. It's just, will he realize that talent? I think that's what the risk that the Colts are taking with this player here in round 2, but I think it's a risk worth taking. I mean, look, every now and then you got to swing for the fences. Maybe in round 1, that was your safe hit. That was you swinging for the double. Maybe it can turn into a triple, because Latu, is going to be a good player at the end of the day. As long as he's healthy, Latu is going to be a good football player for you. A.D. Mitchell has this range of outcomes where he could be a top tier wide receiver in the league, or he could be out of the league in a couple of years because, again, he just never put together so far, like in his career. But I think he is a fascinating player. He's a player who I was jokingly down on throughout the whole process because, again, the film was tough to watch. You watch this player where he could reach these great heights, and he could have, again, the ability-wise, he could have been the best wide receiver in college football over the past couple of years. He just never reached that potential. So it was a frustrating watch on film, but he still ended up as my wide receiver 6 in this class, because you have to acknowledge what he can be, and what he can be is great. So I'm excited to see what the Colts do with this. I love his ability off the line of scrimmage. I think he gives the Colts that vertical pass catcher who can play the X position, line up backside of the formation, and win vertical, and just have those routes where it's, hey, we're going to throw this jump ball to you, go up and get it down the field. I think he can do those things for this offense that the Colts have been looking for, and then I think he has the potential to be much more. So I'm excited to see what Shane Steichen, Reggie Wayne can get out of this player, because if they can get him to reach his full potential, this is the star wide receiver that you guys have been asking for the entire Chris Ballard tenure. It's just, again, he has a ways to go. He's a 21-year-old player who never put together in college. There is a ways to go for him, but the potential is there. I totally get the process of this pick, even though, again, I was jokingly low on him throughout the whole process, throughout the whole draft process. I totally get the process. I get the shot. And at 52, the value was great there for the Colts. So again, I have mixed feelings on this. Like, I wouldn't give this like an A+, I'm doing jumping jacks over it. But again, if you can just pull out that talent that he has, you are going to get a really, really good player. So that's kind of my overall thoughts there on A.D. Mitchell. I know I took up pretty much the entire first segment there, Jake, but it was such a nuanced conversation about him, because it's a fascinating pick, because, again, the ceiling is so high, but there is a way this doesn't work. But you have to swing for the fences, right? That's what you have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. This feels like, so Chris Ballard has always tried to get this type of receiver, the big-bodied, super athletic guy, and it feels like this is the best possible avenue for it to finally work. This is a guy that actually has all the other stuff, all the other makeup to make it happen. He's come from the two major programs. Here in a minute, we'll get into more of like his fit and expectations for him and things like that, as well as Matt Goncalves a little bit. But first, we're going to hear from our sponsors. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals who are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board either. It helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job. It might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode of your favorite Locked On podcast is brought to you by the best meal kit service in the game, Home Chef. No more having to answer the dreaded question, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? Thanks to Home Chef and their chef-designed recipes that are delivered directly to my door, all pre-packaged, pre-portioned. They even peel the garlic cloves for you. And each recipe, one of my favorites, blackened mahi, comes with a full page of easy-to-read instructions that include customization options and pictures to guide you along the way through the step-by-step process so you don't have to ask, is that what chard looks like? I cannot recommend Home Chef enough, especially right now, because for a limited time, Home Chef is giving Locked On listeners 18 free meals, free dessert for life, and of course, free shipping on your first box if you head to homechef.com/lockedon today. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. Yes, you heard that right. Homechef.com/lockedon. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert.
My wife and I have tried all those. I love Home Chef, but I love Ross even more. So that was absolutely perfect for us to get in this next segment. Like Zach mentioned at the top of this thing, Chris Ballard came out guns blazing in support of AD Mitchell tonight. If you haven't checked that out, I posted the video of Chris Ballard's conference there over on our YouTube page. But it was good to see. Number one of the first things that Mitchell said to us was, "I'm pissed." He did not like the fact that he was still sitting there at 52. He wouldn't really elaborate, but that's why guys are pissed at that point of the draft when the entire cycle you've been expecting to go in the first round. But we talked to Chris Ballard about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I can understand. It's a guy that has a lot of talent." But I really like the support staff that the Colts are going to have for Mitchell. And I don't mean it to sound like this is a guy that needs his hand held. That's not what I mean. It's you've got a guy with all the raw tools in the world, and he's super young, but he's got all these awesome puzzle pieces, but he needs to put it together. And Chris Ballard is really high on the fact that they have Reggie Wayne to help bring that out of him. Reggie and Shane Steichen have been in on Mitchell for a while, and they both were very pro AD Mitchell throughout this process and wanted him on the Colts. So they have a plan for him. They know what they want to do, and they know how to help him to reach his potential. So I absolutely love that. And like you mentioned, CeeDee Lamb, that's a guy specifically that they liked in his draft was CeeDee Lamb. And when I watched Mitchell, when I think of the potential, when you see the best of his film, that's what I see. So I absolutely love that. So that's definitely a good thing to look at. But the other guy, I don't want us to totally gloss over Gonsalves. I don't know a lot about him yet. I know that you have specialized in offensive line throughout the draft cycle, so I know you've got plenty to say about him. But this is a guy, we talked to Chris tonight. He said, they think he could play both guard spots, both tackle spots, and they wouldn't even rule out center. So we've been kind of waiting on the next Joe Haeg for several years now. And I think the intention is for him to be that next utility lineman, not just a swing tackle, but literally a guy who you can plug in wherever you need them, wherever there's an injury. Maybe not going to be the planned starter ever. I'm not sure. But they definitely seem to have a plan for him to be able to plug and play wherever they need him when there's a shortage, so I like that. Third round, you hope you're getting a starter, but if you're getting a guy who gives you insurance all along the offensive line, I am totally cool with that.
Yeah, some background on Matt Goncalves. This is a guy where when we were doing the Indy draft guide, he ended up with a 5th round grade from us. So again, you guys might be reading the Indy draft guide as we're talking about this here and being like, oh man, this is a massive reach by the Colts. But for proper context, I got to him pretty late in the process. I've had to add more offensive tackles to the board. And he was a Shrine Bowl guy who was invited to the combine, but didn't work out at the combine. So he was a little low on my list, and I got around to watching him kind of late in the process. And I didn't even have workout numbers in front of me with him. And I still came away with a 4th round grade on him. With rechecks and some other things, he did get knocked down to a 5th round grade in the final guide. But my personal grade was a low 4th on him. I saw the upside. I really liked the explosion on film, and I thought there was some high ability as a pass blocker, particularly in his game. A guy who had started games at right tackle and left tackle in his career was going to have a really big season this year as the team starting left tackle, but unfortunately suffered a major injury in week 3, which knocked him out for the rest of the season. And I believe it knocked him out of the Shrine Bowl as well. And he would have been one of the top players at the Shrine Bowl. So I was really optimistic when I got to his film. I mean, look, when I got to his film late in the process, I was wading through the film of these offensive tackles who are just not going to make it in the NFL. I mean, that's the nature of doing a draft guide. You have to watch a lot of guys who are not going to be NFL players just to weed out who you're watching and getting enough names in the book. And Goncalves was like my 30th guy that I had gotten to out of the 35 I watched. And he was a breath of fresh air, like a fantastic breath of fresh air. I mean, again, he was the only guy I think I watched in my final 15 that cracked my top 20, or my final like 10 guys that cracked my top 20. Did a lot of good things on film. I really enjoyed what I liked. I just didn't see anything recent from him because he missed this whole last year. So it made the projection a little tough. But I love his versatility. 6'6", 320, wears it really well. Very explosive, competitive in the pass blocking game. In the run game, I love his initial contact, and I love how he hits his landmarks in the zone blocking game. I would like to see him stay a little bit more connected in the run game. But again, if you're not expecting him to start from day one, you can work on those things. You can refine those things. And I think if we're talking purely from an NFL ready standpoint, I think currently he is their most, I mean, again, I'm going off of what we saw last year from Blake Freeland, but I think he is their best option after the starters at offensive tackle, guard, and center probably on the roster, because I do think on his film he showcased that NFL ready ability that Blake Freeland didn't even showcase on his college film or much of last season, as a matter of fact. Now, Freeland might be ready to play now because he's got a whole year under his belt and he's good to go there at tackle. But I do think if we're comparing them as prospects and we're comparing just how ready these guys were coming into the league, I think Gonsalves is a guy who I'd feel more comfortable out there from day one. So Gonsalves, he's a guy who I think can be a really good rotational guy this next year, or just, swing guy behind your starters. I think he can compete for a starting role in 2025, whether that's at right guard if Will Fries walks, whether that's at center if Ryan Kelly walks, or however it's going to be. Maybe it can be at right guard and Will Fries moves to center or something like that down the line. So I think this was a pick for the future. I think it's a pick that makes a lot of sense, that the Colts were seemingly very high on Gonsalves. Again, breath of fresh air when I watched him on film, even watching some of his stuff now. I mean, the way he was handling Braden Fisk, or however you say his name, who was a top 40 pick in this draft, how he was handling him in 2022, you have to be optimistic. So I like Matt Goncalves. I was a fan of this pick. I mean, again, trading up for him, maybe I wouldn't have done that, but you're going up 3 picks, you're giving up a 6 for him. It's kind of, null at that point. Big fan of Matt Goncalves. I like this pick, and I think he's going to be a valuable player down the line for them.
Yeah, and the Colts had a little added intel on him coming into this one. When we talked to Gonsalves right after he was picked, he mentioned Charlie Partridge, obviously was the defensive line coach at Pittsburgh, that the Colts just hired in to be their defensive line coach. He said he's pumped to reunite with him, and thought that Partridge probably put in a good word for him in the draft room. Could vouch for him being a guy that is tough from a defensive line perspective to go up against as an offensive lineman. So again, I always love those little wrinkles when the Colts have a little extra step up on the competition of, we know a little bit more about him than these other teams do. So I'm fine with the pick. I'll be honest. At first I was like, but I hadn't watched him yet. You obviously have. And, after talking to Ballard, like, I think they could have done much worse. There were other guys on the board that I liked more, but again, I didn't know him. So like, it could be totally fine. It sounds like it's a fine pick.
Look, I just love watching offensive linemen. So look, they're giving me an offensive lineman to watch here at 12:30 in the morning. I'm excited. I might not sound it right now in my voice, but I am excited, guys.
You are a sicko is what you are.
That's what I am. That's what I am for sure. But coming up, guys, we're going to be going into even more sicko mode and talk about some day 3 guys that we like for the Colts. And maybe we'll get into some undrafted free agents we like for the Colts too. I mean, again, we could just go on forever about this. Coming up here in just a second. But first, we've all been there, either as a player or as a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is just not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game. Pull off some bank heists and take as much as my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends and get the most riches in the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly that you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards and make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball and charge other players rent on your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboards. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or on Google Play. All right, Jake. So I see that you put a bunch of known names here to look out for on day 3. So we're going to rattle through these guys, but then I want the deep cuts after that, Jake. I want the Matt Goncalves types after this. But let's go through some of the common names, some really shocking names here that are falling to day 3. I think the 2 most shocking names that fell to day 3 for me, and I don't really have an explanation for why these guys fell, is Troy Franklin, wide receiver from Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand him falling to day 3 at all. I mean, maybe in the past NFL, they'd be scared of a slimmer receiver, but we live in a world where Xavier Worthy just went in the first round. So that one seemed a little weird to me. And then Jaden Hicks, safety from Washington State. I mean, he's not even an older prospect. He just turned 21, was productive at Washington State, can play either safety spot, can play corner. I don't understand him falling to day 3. Those are the 2 standouts to me. But you have a lot of other guys on here as well, Jake.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are ones we thought probably would have gone by the end of day 2. A little surprising that they're here at 4. Like Jaden Hicks, like you mentioned, Troy Franklin was set in stone as a second rounder throughout this whole process. But yeah, Jaden Hicks, I've been seeing nothing but day 2 buzz for him lately. TJ Tampa seemed like another guy locked into round 2. I'm not shocked by Jatavian Sanders because it seems like every single year what the consensus media rankings of tight ends are is not what the NFL does. The tight end is always chaos throughout the draft. You knew it would be Brock Bowers first and then whatever the hell else going on after that. Cam Hart, I think this is a little low for him. I thought he would go by the end of day 2. Again, he's kind of a tradesy guy. Reminds me a lot of Juju Brents. But then we're getting into some guys who we're getting into appropriate territory for them. And I think they'd be really nice pickups for the Colts. Obviously, they haven't got a corner yet. So you're looking at Cam Hart, TJ Tampa, but also Kyrie Jackson. Absolutely huge former Alabama transfer over to Oregon. Your guy, Dadrian Taylor Demerson, safety from Texas Tech. I know you are eyeballing him. Malik Mustafa, the missile of a strong safety out of Wake Forest. Isaac Garendo, if they want to add a running back. And then our guy, Edifwan Ulafosio. I feel like the Colts owe it to me because I learned his name and it feels so zesty coming out. Like, I love saying that name, and I really just want that to land. They still need a
Yeah.
linebacker for special teams, if nothing else. Like, just do it.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I think you put him on here just because you at least wanted to say his name one more time. Like, if the Colts don't draft him,
Absolutely. I may
you
not
wanted to
get
at
to
least say it
again.
one more
So
time.
fly
Right.
high, my prince, if I don't get to say that name again.
We're gonna get the Ulafosio jersey if the Colts select him here on day 3. But no, those are some names that really stand out to me. I think a lot of those guys would make sense for the Colts, especially again Hicks, Franklin. If they really just want to go wide receiver again, like why not? Let's have some fun with it. But especially at the cornerback position too, TJ Tampa, Cam Hart, Kyrie Jackson. I think this is the right range for those guys to come to the Colts. I think when we're looking at who the Colts go after tomorrow, or what positions they go after, I think we can feel comfortable saying that they're going to be looking at running backs. Like they're going to be looking at running backs tomorrow. They need that RB2. They need a kick returner. We don't have a kick returner on the roster either right now. So I do think running back gets addressed. I could see another offensive lineman, another interior offensive lineman, especially like a center tomorrow that could definitely be in play. I think safety and corner, obviously, we have to say because they still haven't drafted either one of those positions yet. I feel very comfortable saying that they're probably going to sign veterans after the draft at this point
Yeah.
at those
I think
positions.
they're
But
going to draft. They're going to draft at least one DB, but I also am super confident they're going to sign one after.
right, right. But that's the conversation for another day there. Linebacker, I do think, again, for Ulafosio fans out there, I do think that's certainly in play there on day 3. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways the Colts could go about it here. I mean, they could double up at some of these positions. There's a lot of flexibility where I don't think, again, outside of corner and safety, but again, you're not really drafting for need on day 3. You're just drafting talent or special teams ability. But outside of those positions, I really don't think there's many needs left on this roster. So I think they can just kind of go off the board and say, "Hey, this is a guy we had a round 3 grade on, or we had an early 4 on, or something. Let's go get him right here." I think the only pick I'm really curious about is what they're going to do with that mid 4th round pick because there should be some decent talent on the board there. And last year we saw them get a guy who a lot of people projected to go in the top 50 and Adetomi Adebore. They got him in the 4th round. They got Blake Freeland in the 4th round, who was an all-time great tester at the tackle position. So I do think they can get a good, talented player in round 4. So I'm curious if it's one of these guys that you have on the list here. I mean, why not just go all out on offense and go draft Troy Franklin? Like, let's have some fun with it. Let's just get Troy Franklin in here as well. Have some fun with our offense next year. But I think there's a lot of routes the team could go with, obviously, tomorrow on day 3, and then obviously in the undrafted free agent period as well.
Yeah, I'm also kind of thinking about, we haven't yet had the Colts local pro day pick. You know, last year it was mostly through undrafted free agents, but several guys made their way to the Colts that had come from the local pro day. And you know, Tip Ryman is already off the board, but you're looking at like Aaron Casey from Indiana, the linebacker is an option there. Tyrone Tracy, the running back from Purdue. Garindo, again, I already mentioned. So I have a feeling at least one Colts local pro day guy is going to get picked up because they had several draftable guys there. Isaiah Adams already came off the board. That's one. So they've had some decent guys. So I could see that happening. But I feel very confident. Like, Chris Ballard loves to get a day 3 running back. He loves to get a day 3 linebacker. You're about to see a bunch of special teams contributors happen. And like you had mentioned with the return guy, like probably like a Tyrone Tracy would be pretty good for that. But I do think it would be wise for them to go get their Isaiah Rodgers type guy right now. Go get your kick returner.
Yeah, for sure. I'll throw out 2 names for you guys. Anthony Gold, I think, would be a great kick return option. The Oregon State wide receiver, a little undersized, super speedy. I think he'd be a great kick return option. And one dude, I just don't think I've been very vocal about my love for this player. It's been very behind the scenes for me, but just a running back name I want to throw out there because he reminds me so much of like a Zach Moss type runner is Kamani Vidal from Troy. I love his film. I love a lot of what he does. Very powerful running back. Just carried the load there for Troy's offense the last 2 seasons. One of the best rushers in college football over that span. So I would love him on day 3 here. I'm secretly like really excited for it if they can actually get that done. I don't know if they've even met with him in this pre-draft process, but That's my Edifon Eulofosio right there. That's my Eulofosio. Just a little more quiet about it. You're very vocal about your Eulofosio. I'm keeping it a little to myself
Well,
here,
it
but
fits so well.
it does. It
I
does.
I
But you
do
guys,
like that Vidal pick for you though.
yeah,
Yeah, he
no,
had a
Vidal would be
strong
great.
Senior Bowl, and yeah, sorry, I think there's a delay here, but no, he had a strong Senior Bowl, and when I did that show with Aaron Schatz the other day, and he said, the analytics back up a guy like Kamani Vidal as well. He thinks he's like a perfect day 3 running back for really any team. So I think would be a really good matchup, and stylistically, it goes with what the Colts have attempted to do behind Jonathan Taylor this spring.
Yep, absolutely. So Kamani Vidal, that's my guy, Edifon Eulofosio. You guys let us know in the comment section who you want the Colts to go after here on day 3. Also let us know what you think of the picks of A.D. Mitchell and Matt Goncalves. Which one did you like more? Okay, you don't have to answer that one. I think I know which one you like more, but you can tell us what you think about those 2 players in our comment section below. If you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. Also subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We'd love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow night after day 3.